affection-starved, the kind who crawled into your lap and cupped your cheeks with her baby-fat palms, patted your face and stroked your hair, and stared straight into your eyes with no sense of boundaries, much less the concept of personal space. He loved children when they were unself-conscious, but that phase was so swift, so fleeting, and he was left with the paradox of trying to teach them to be as they once were, to return to a time when they didn't understand the concept of embarrassment, much less worry about what others thought. But it was the eternal struggle. Once you realize you're in Eden, you have to leave. He watched the teenage years approach with more anguish than any parent, knowing it marked the end. The lens was a powerful one, purchased years ago. He was no Luddite. There was much new technology on which he doted, and even more for which he yearned. But he could not sacrifice his old Pentax for a digital camera. Besides, the kind of SLR system he would need was out of reach. The Canon he had priced online was $2,500 at discount, and that was for the body alone. No, he would stick with his battered Pentax for now. Come to think of it, how old was this camera? It must be 25-30 years ago that he had taken the plunge at Cooper's Camera Mart. A memory tickled his nose. What was that wonderful aroma that camera stores once had? Film. It must have been film, or the developing products, all outmoded now. Consider it. In his lifetime, just a little over a half-century, he had gone from shooting photos with a Kodak automatic, the kind with a detachable wand of flashbulbs, to shooting movies that he could watch instantly at home. And if anyone thought that was inferior to trying to load an eel-slippery roll of film onto a reel, then they had his sympathy. No, he had no complaints about what technology had wrought. Technology was wonderful. If he had had more technology at his disposal even 15 years ago, then things might be very different now. Look up, look up, look up, he urged the image he had captured, and just like that, as if his wish were her command, she lifted her eyes from the paper in front of her, stopped sipping her drink, and stared into the distance. Such an open, innocent face, so guileless and genuine, so everything she wasn't. Her mouth, free from the straw, puckered in lonely dismay, and he knew in that instance the image that had been tantalizing him. The Simpsons. The episode that had managed to parody The Great Escape and The Birds with just a few deft strokes. He had watched it with his young friends, pointing out the Hitchcock cameo, then screening the real movies for them so they could understand the larger context. It was the only reason he agreed to watch the cartoon with him, in order to explain all its cinematic illusions. They had loved both movies, although the explicit horror of killer birds had seemed to affect them far more than the true story behind the men who had escaped from Stalag Luft III, only to be executed upon their capture. He was 10 years old when the movie came out. He saw it at the Hippodrome, and World War II, an experience shared by his father and uncles, loomed large in his imagination. Now he found himself surrounded by young people who thought Vietnam was ancient history. They had reeled when they learned he was old enough to have been in the draft. This one, she too considered him old, and therefore a person she was free to ignore. She probably didn't even remember the Persian Gulf War. She might not know there was a war going on even now, given how insular she was. Insular and insolent. He watched the rosebud of her mouth return to the straw, and decided that the image that had been teasing him, literally and figuratively, was Lolita. The movie version, of course. No heart-shaped sunglasses, but she didn't need them, did she? "You'll be the death of me," he lamented, clicking the shutter. "You'll be the death of me." Literally and figuratively. Part 1. Kiss, kiss, bang, bang. Fall came early to Mount Vernon this October, much to the neighborhood's disgust. According to Mandy Stewart, vice president of the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Association, workers for Mann of Steel stripped leaves from the trees in order to create the late autumn atmosphere required for the miniseries, which is being produced by Philip.